Welcome to Podcast Awesome, where we chat about icons, design, tech, business, and nerdery with members of the Font Awesome team.
Font Awesome, go make something awesome. Font Awesome, go make something awesome.
If you build software, or maybe even if you don't build software, you know how frustrating it is to be a part of a project where the work is not really clearly defined and there's really no end in sight, and you end up going down a bunch of rabbit holes that were totally unhelpful and end up delivering a product that does not hit the target. Well, over the years, we've experimented with different kinds of project management tools and solutions and have found the best approach for us is to use the shape-up method, which was created by the folks at 37 Signals, the makers of Basecamp, and how it helps the team at Font Awesome to stay on track and deliver great products. Can you tell me a little bit about what ShapeUp is and how Font Awesome started using it and maybe why it seemed like a good fit for our workflows?
Yeah, so ShapeUp is kind of it's a software delivery or project management philosophy that's different from, say, your traditional waterfall development or maybe even your typical agile development in its many forms. And, came out of how Basecamp tried to ship software over its life. And then just, within a couple of years, they kind of codified it in a book and kind of set out kind of, really what they've discovered over how they try to ship software, kind of matching their business philosophy of being able to ship software calmly, shipping a feature that is complete, but maybe not have everything that you might want to have, just so you have that constant flow of delivering features or tools or whatever to customers, and you're not stuck developing a piece of software in isolation without customers seeing it or working with it or giving kind of feedback. And you just, you're off developing for a year. And then by the time you actually deliver it to the public, it's completely not intended or wanted, or something's changed. The context has changed. The world has changed, and it's just not, usable.
Right. And a lot of times that seems to happen, say, like in the waterfall method, right? Like somebody says, we want this product, you've got 6 months or whatever to create it. And then you run into this problem where it's like, well, that's not really what we needed.
Yeah. And your traditional waterfall, it's kind of very spec. I interacted with waterfall. It's very much like you'd have a lot of business folks, business development folks. They would be thinking through like what kind of the problems they have and how we're going to use software to solve those problems. And so then they would start writing a spec of how this thing needs to be able to work. And depending on where you are or what business you're working with, waterfall could flow out a bunch of different ways. But sometimes it could be even very detailed specs of workflows and use case diagrams and wireframing and all this kind of stuff, exactly what they want. And then they would hand that off and the team would go build that. But, depending on how complex the software is, it could take, a long time. And then by that time, business has changed. The world has changed. And you would deliver something that was asked for, but it wasn't quite what was needed by the time, they needed to use it. And so then Agile methodologies came, into being, how to respond better to changing business requirements. That's always something that needs to happen as you are in business and you're doing things and customer requests come in or you have a better understanding of what they're actually asking for. You need to be able to shift what you're delivering, but you want to be able to do that to where you don't just completely burn out your team. That, you come in every week and like, okay, well, now we're building this. And then, okay, now we're building that. And okay, nobody wants to work in that way either, right? Because you start building momentum, you start having an understanding that building software is very complex. And so you want to try to minimize as much as that, the jumping around as possible so that you can deliver software. And so Agile came along and try to help deliver software quicker, respond quicker to changing, landscape. And then from there, taking those, and I don't know for fact, I'm not, necessarily speaking for the 37 Signals folks, but, taking those principles and developing a methodology that fit more with how they wanted to also run their company.
Because in an agile model, usually that's like, often in like a 2-week sprint, right? Which seems like a pretty short period of time to get something done and completed.
Yeah, it kind of depends on what it can be defined a lot of different ways, right? So there's, Agile is kind of not only of a development philosophy, that also kind of transition into, I guess, more of a development philosophy, maybe XP programming or Agile. They get kind of jumbled together anymore. But it's kind of, there's a development philosophy and some rules around that don't really have anything to do with necessary project management. And then there's like the agile project management philosophy. And one of the biggest ones is Scrum, is what a lot of people know. And yeah, they do more things like having sprints, and you can define your sprint length.
Sure.
So you can try to find that for your team. What I've interacted with Agile were mainly 2-week sprints. And so then every 2 weeks. And so you're delivering smaller bits of functionality, but it also allows you to respond quicker to customer requests.
Mm-hmm.
And in my case, I worked for contracting, DoD contractor. And so we were responding to what that particular branch of the military might want quicker in software. And so we would constantly do sprinting. And kind of what we found when we founded Font Awesome is we didn't want to sprint the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of very much analogous to running. If you're sprinting all the time, there's really no time to reflect or rest or recuperate. You're just constantly going from delivery to delivery to delivery to delivery, and there's no time to sit back and say, okay, as a whole, where are we going? Now, in a lot of full Scrum situations, you would have the person on your team that interacting with the customer, the business, supposed to have that macro level, help the team deliver that macro level through a bunch of micro level sprints.
Mm-hmm.
is the philosophy. But actually, I've worked the Waterfall way, I've worked the Scrum Agile way, and when we did Font Awesome, we wanted to try to take the best of what we've learned from and maybe kind of tweak and do our own. So we kind of actually did kind of a hybrid. We started doing kind of a Kanban style.
Mm-hmm. How's Kanban different than like Agile?
They're very similar. You can almost put them in the same bucket. It really comes down, a lot of times for me, it comes down to like tooling and how you think about a project, where Kanban, maybe you would back up a little bit, maybe have a little bit longer quote sprints. And then the tooling is more like board focused. One of the big ones that was very popular was Trello at the time.
Right.
It's free and open source and got picked up by Atlassian. You would have your swim lanes would tell you like, okay, well, this, whatever you define them as, but say for us, it'd be like, research and development, or, just thinking about an idea, and then moving into, okay, let's define this a little bit further. And then, okay, it's on the backlog, ready to go. And then we pick it up and we put it. And so it's in active development, and maybe it's in testing, and then finally it's done. And you could quickly pull up the Kanban board, and see where, either a whole project, depending on how, granular define that, where it sits along its development lifecycle.
Mm-hmm.
So we would do something like, I can't even remember what we used to call it. One of the philosophies we started before we knew anything about Shape Up was we wanted to do almost a sprint of product development, and then a sprint of taking care of ourselves, taking care of the software, paying down technical debt, or if we learn something that we can go back and refactor, maybe after, we delivered, like, we kind of wanted that to be a little bit better. So let's go back. And so it's kind of like this on-off cycle as far as shipping direct software to the customer, and then coming back and saying, okay, well, what did we learn? How can we make that better? Is there something we want to clean up to make our lives better going forward? Called it TikTok. And so we would tick and then we'd talk. And so we'd go on and off. And it actually wound up being more analogous to what you do in Shape Up.
Mm-hmm. Which is like the cool down period, usually like a couple weeks after.
Yes. So with Shape Up, you define a period of time. 37 Signals uses 6 weeks. We also use 6 weeks. Again, that really is, and they talk about this, it's really more about where your team sits, what's your team composition, what's your business environment, what, all that kind of goes into what you think is a long enough time to get something significant done, but not too long to where things can atrophy or you're delivering the wrong stuff, and not too short where you feel like you're not getting something complete,
right?
Or something whole done, instead of just delivering little pieces that eventually, a lot of times if you do like 2 week sprints, what I found in working 2 week sprints is we're all delivering little pieces of the whole, and then we're hoping that they all fit together at the end to fill that hole, versus doing something. So we do 6 week, much like Basecamp recommends in their Shape Up book, is we do 6 weeks. We call them splits. We wanted to actually change the mentality around what that is. We're not sprinting. We do 6 week splits, and then we do a 2 week cool down. That allows us to deliver software, but also grow ourselves.
Yeah.
So we use cool down a lot for learning something new, doing bug fixes. things that bothered us, doing refactorings that like, after we delivered something, we're like, nah, I don't really like code isn't as maintainable as it could be, or that user interface isn't as usable as it could be. And so it's been bugging me. And so we're going to go in and we could use that. We could do little projects that's like, it doesn't really fit into a full split, but it'd be like a really cool little feature. And so someone's going to go pick that up and work. And it's really more the team gets to pick what they want to try to do during the cooldown. Then after cooldown, we kind of have a little show and tell. It's like, hey, what'd you learn? What'd you build? What'd you do? What bugs did you fix? Whatever. We get to celebrate cooldowns as much as we celebrate the work we do in a split.
Yeah, and I imagine too that's a really good time for folks to have some agency to work on the stuff that they want to, so they feel energized and they get to work on stuff. Hopefully we're all working on stuff that we like and care about. But if you have like a pet project or something like that that energizes you and you like to jump in there and figure stuff out, that would help folks to be in a good mindset and be excited to hop back into the next project,
Yeah, we've gotten a lot of really interesting tools that wind up running our business out of Cooldowns. Our web font rendering tool came out of Cooldown. We use an Elixir Phoenix stack with Vue.js right now. Is kind of what mainfontawesome.com is built in. And so those stacks, especially Elixir, is kind of more of a newer language. So a lot of times when we have new developers, whatever, it's going to take them a while to kind of get used to our stack, and it's a little bit different. It's a different kind of language, has different ergonomics and mechanics and whatnot. So learning that, as well as Vue.js, if you've never written straight up SP8 style JavaScript, it can take a bit. And so one of our programmers here, Ed, he actually uses Cooldown to build a game, and we've had blogs about that. Space Awesome. It's great. It's fun.
Oh yes, yep.
And it was more of a challenge of, hey, like he want to learn Vue.js and he want to learn how to build with it better. And he loves game dev and always talks about game dev. And so it's like, hey, why don't you kill two birds with one stone? You can really dive in, building a whole game, a whole front end game in Vue.js will teach you a lot of Vue.js. Plus it's a really cool game and it uses all of our icons, and then it's just a win-win all around. And it's a really cool, a cool project.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's been really cool to see him get that ready and launch it. There was a lot of excitement among the team, and he did a little campaign online and got other folks introduced to it. So for anybody listening who has not played Space Awesome, you're going to want to go to spaceawesome.io, I think is the URL, right?
Yep.
Go and play it. There's all kinds of fun little Easter eggs, and it's built completely. All the visual stuff is created with Font Awesome icons. So make sure to check that out.
You can find all the Easter eggs as well.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of like Oregon Trail in space, and there's a ton of Easter eggs that you can find and chuckle at.
Yep, indeed. Okay, so ShapeUp, it consists of three main workflows. Can you tell us a little bit about how that's, give us a little outline for that?
Yeah, so it kind of breaks down into there's shaping, there's bedding, and there's building. And shaping is the process of taking however the requests come in, either from customers, our own thoughts, anything like that, where you take an idea and you start to shape it. You start to pull it apart, put it together, figure out exactly what the solution is that you're trying to, or the feature you're trying to give. And so you'll wireframing in there. There's breadboard. It's granular enough that the team can take it and kind of know where to go with it and build it and what's needed, the center of the idea. But it's coarse enough that there's no...
It's not prescriptive.
Yeah, we're not tied to this UI. Yeah. We're not tied to this way of building it. There's enough creativity that the team can go in and bring their genius to and make it full and whole and ready to deliver to customers, but delivers on what is requested. Mm-hmm. You get a chance to really think through an idea. And you get to, what's really neat about it is you get to put a bet on it, right? It's like the really neat thing I think about ShapeUp is they try to change the way you think of things. It's not how long I want to do something or how long this something takes. What you say is, this is how much I want to bet on it. Mm-hmm. If I got $10, I want to spend $4 on this feature and I want to spend $6 on this feature, right? And so a lot of time that's weeks. And so like we have 6 weeks, we say, okay, what's the scope of this? What are we willing to bet? We want to bet like 3 weeks worth of time because, maybe we want to get it out in customers' hands and see if it resonates and see if we should spend more time digging in and developing that further, or maybe we missed the mark. Maybe it doesn't resonate or it's not as interesting as we thought it would be. So we'll get to learn that quicker. And so we try to define like, for this feature, for this tool, whatever that is, how much do we want to bet on that? How much are we willing to spend per se?
Mhm.
And then that gets put into the shape up document. So it's like, okay, shaping documents like, okay, this is everything that we think, this is the problem that we're seeing. This is the possible solution. This is kind of like very high level workflowy type. Like this is how we could see the solution, how you could work through the solution, and this is what it could look like. And this is kind of what the things it needs to do. And these are the areas it possibly needs to touch. And this is how much time we think we're willing to spend on that. And then we bring it what's called the betting table. And so we come through and say, okay, of all the ideas we have for this next iteration, this next split, what do we want to bet on? What are we saying? Like, yep, this is in a good enough shape. We've spent the time shaping this, enough that we're ready for the teams to work on it.
Mhm.
And then we get to hand that off to the team. And so there's shaping, and there's betting, and then there's building. And when you hand that off to the team, one of the things I love about Shape Up is you hand this document off, you talk about it, make sure we define for sure what the center, what we're trying to deliver is, and then you let the team do the thing that the team does. And that's bring all their expertise, their creativity, their genius, and to deliver software, in our case, final software to the customer. And they get the chance to scope, right? So if we say, listen, at the shaping, we thought this thing, we're willing to bet 6 weeks. And this is the really center of what we're trying to deliver. And there's this, maybe there's this other piece that we say, oh, this would be nice little to go along with it, this feature. And the team's like, okay, well, we can definitely deliver what's required, the center of this thing, in 6 weeks for sure, right? We feel that's a good bet. But this thing over here, man, it's going to be really tough to fit that in. And so they get the chance to scope hammer that out. Where they say, you know what, that's not the center of this thing, so it can go by the wayside to make sure we deliver you a full featured thing that you're requesting, and then if it's important to come along and build that feature later, right? It can go back into the shaping process and be added to a future split. And so it allows the team to have the autonomy to make sure things are scoped properly, that they fit into the way we want to run our business, which is we want to work calmly. We want to deliver great software. We want to be fulfilled in life and work as employees of Fun Awesome, and also deliver and delight customers in the software we deliver. And it's full featured, and it works, and it's easy, it's usable, it's understandable. And we want to do that without like running ourselves ragged.
Okay, so that sounds like it sort of puts us right into the territory of the philosophy of how Font Awesome wants to work. And you said before that it's crucial to you and Dave to align Font Awesome's business philosophy with how you guys work. And so how does Shape Up align with that philosophy?
Dave and I take a lot of inspiration from the books that 37 Signals put out, Rework, and it doesn't have to be crazy at work, and remote, we're a remote company, those kind of things, and trying to maybe do business different, do our own spin on it, see what works for us based off of all the places we've worked and kind of how we would try to change things.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those things that I ran into, and I'll speak for me, ran into my career, is you might get a solution defined. We need this feature X in the software, and we're going to give you 3 weeks to develop it. And we don't, and the person that's saying this may not have enough technical expertise to know, like, it's not possible to deliver what you're asking for in 3 weeks. And so it's like, okay, the pressure, where does that come from? How do you do your job, deliver this thing in 3 weeks and still meet the requirements that are laid out? And it's a
Mm-hmm.
tough position to be in. And so, it's like tons of extra hours, or you make shortcuts in the code, and the code that you're actually delivering is really not maintainable. Nobody else can come along and work on this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you really didn't test it out very well. You're just trying to get delivered. And so what we wanted to do is have a workplace that you can deliver, high quality, great work in a reasonable amount of time, in a standard amount of time, and that it's on us to make sure that the things are shaped full enough that you understand what is being asked for and can be delivered in what we're trying to bet, how much we're willing to bet.
Mm-hmm.
And then the team gets the ability to say, well, we're going to cut these pieces out that aren't part of the center to make sure that we deliver it without having to sacrifice, our own personal time. And so, we believe a good 40-hour work week is plenty to get really amazing work done. And we believe that what a person is outside of work is just as important what a person at work is.
Mm-hmm.
And that they bring all, I want the whole person, I want all their creativity, all their experiences, that kind of stuff. Because I personally believe that builds the best software. Not only that, it makes it a wonderful place to work. It keeps stress really low. and make sure you get good sleep. I mean, all these kind of things kind of playing together that you come and who you are as a whole person. We've got musicians on the team. We have artists on the team. A lot of this you'll get through the podcast from our Nerd Show and Tell. You're going to see like all these different things people love outside of. And it does actually come in and help inform how they build software for people. They become more empathetic. They understand, our customers better, and they try to, deliver great software. And we get to do that together. And then we get to go home and live our home life. And we just feel that we get the best output by allowing people to work in a very calm workplace. We're not perfect, obviously, but we strive for that. We strive to be calm and deliver great stuff and just kind of keep moving the ball down the field every split. One of the things we often do in a split when we do some check-ins is we like, okay, who's running hot?
Right.
Who's running hot, which is, for us, it's code for like, okay, who's really feeling the burn above normal, just every day developing software? What can we do to lessen that?
Mm-hmm.
I just remember in my career working split to split to split, burnout happened really quickly because, again, we're always, sorry, not in that case, split. Those were sprint to sprint to sprint. I'm always sprinting. There was never time to be like, can I relook at things? Can I just have a little bit of a breather to like bring up to, the business owners or something? Because that's what we want with our team too, is that there's enough time for them to have input into what we're delivering at Font Awesome.
If folks have some say-so, that just seems so much healthier to me.
Yeah. And I will admit, like, we're really lucky the kind of software we deliver. We deliver software for designers and developers. We value creativity because our product has to be creative, because we get to value that. We get to hire for that, and we get to then build out the whole process. And so just having that creativity flow and have ideas flow not only from top down, but bottom up, I think builds a calm working place and just a great working place because I hope that everybody can be heard, right? Everybody can be and have a chance to just, especially with Cooldown, you get the autonomy, you get to go build. And, so many things have come out of Cooldown that are on our site or part of our products that if I said like, that was just in like, anybody's time, that's in their own time, and some of it's pretty major stuff that we use now.
Right.
That it's like, that wasn't even a split project. That was just someone wanting to be creative and try things. And it's kind of like, that's amazing to me, that a lot of really important work just came out of Cooldown and wasn't even, even thought of what we were trying to deliver. It just kind of happened. And then we built on top of it. And sure, then split work came out of that. And we was like, oh, let's build on top of this thing. This is great. Let's just keep moving.
So we talked a little bit about Space Awesome. Can you give examples of other Cooldown work that was like really super valuable? Yeah.
I mean, one of them is we call HauntForge, which is our font building engine. So, with Font Awesome, we still deliver an SVG. We still deliver an icon fonts and web fonts. And we were using FontForge for a long time, but we would just ran into some technical issues with it. And it has a whole UI that we just never used. We were kind of really more for scripting, for putting our stuff together in the icon font container itself. Out of that, just kind of the desire of like, could we actually have our own engine that was maybe headless, that we could control, add more features, understand a little bit better? Mike, one of the programmers here, it was one of those things where we were just kind of talking like, it'd be really cool if we did this. And oh man, really cool if like we could figure out if Rust is like a really cool language to use and that kind of stuff. He took that and just ran with it. And then I can't even express how much it's grown and how valuable it is to us to this day and how we're going to use it. That's a really great example. Trying to think of some others.
That's great. So I have to pinpoint HauntForge. You said something about being headless. Is there a little bit of a pun there? HauntForge.
We'd have to ask Mike. I don't know.
Maybe.
I never thought about it, actually. It was pretty funny.
Yeah.
On our site, kind of came out of one of our snuggles, but snuggles are also kind of like Cooldown in a sense. Kind of got fleshed out more in Cooldown as the icon wizard,
right?
Which allowed you to do this, modify icons, and now the icon library grows infinitely, basically, because you can just kind of create your own, and we want to continue to expand that. So a lot of that kind of stuff happens, and we wind up using it.
So let's define a little bit for folks what the icon wizard is.
So the icon wizard, if you go to our, like our icon listing, our search, and you find an icon that you want, and you want to have maybe a lightning bolt. maybe we have a poo storm icon, but maybe if we didn't, you wanted your own poo storm icon, you could find our poo icon, and if you fire up the icon wizard, you can annotate it with, see if there's lightning bolt there. And so there's a lot of those type of almost like little annotation, little icons you can use as annotations to other icons.
Yeah, modifying elements, kind of.
Yeah, modifying. Yeah. So instead of like building all those icons ourselves, what if we could build a way in which customers, users can just define that for themselves, whatever they're needing. So if you have like a document, you can put, some kind of annotation to it. But then it just opens up to like, well, what if you could take those defined annotations, modifiers, and put them on any icon? And then you get some crazy combinations that you just couldn't even think of. And so it's really fun.
One of the surprising things and sort of a takeaway I took from reading Shape Up is that it's okay. It might even be expected that certain work gets abandoned. That shipping really is the highest priority, and that backlogs kill productivity. And that kind of goes along with the philosophy too of work, that you have to have constraints and limits to actually allow creativity to flow, and you can't do everything. So you do have to have constraints. You do have to be able to say no. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we want to deliver high quality software, and we want to deliver it to customers. We want to ship. Shipping is important. So one of the ways, at least I find myself, I'm going to speak for everybody, for myself, if I'm given unlimited time with my creativity, I will use unlimited amount of time.
Right.
I will always find something to mess around with or change or not be happy with this one thing. And so putting a split, in our case, 6 weeks, a time frame on it, kind of helps box in that creativity. Like and to me, I think it helps us express more creative solutions, right? How can I deliver the center of this thing in this amount of time, right? The time that we've bet. And so I think it actually fosters even more creativity around, because a lot of times to me, creativity is about the choices we make, right? Can't do everything, can't deliver everything, or there's limitations in what we have. So how can we creatively combine all those things to deliver software to the user that they're going to love, they're going to want to use? And so in that, there are times when you get it wrong. What you're willing to bet is not enough, because shaping is at a high enough level. As you get into it, you might find that, that doesn't work that way, or, I can't use that tool yet. It's not ready yet. And so you have to readdress. And so instead of just like, say, beating your head against a wall and trying to, and try to force something that's not there, we hit cooldown. If something did not ship, and we can look at it and go, okay, well, we get to evaluate it. Why didn't it? Is it worth continuing? Did we learn enough to like, you know what? We're going to readdress that, and we're going to put it in the next split, or maybe the split after, just because we have schedules, but we think it's valuable enough. We want to redress it, and we've learned enough that we know how to then maybe shape it a little bit further to make it better, make it to be accomplished. And there's other things we go, you know what? We spend we bet a lot of time on that, or whatever time we bet, but we bet the time on it, and we go, it's not what we want. It's not the ultimate end was like, once we have it, we're like, it's really not there. Let's put it back. Let's let it ruminate. Let's think about it. Let's see if it comes up again. And that's okay, right? Because a lot of it's about learning, right? Just learning what works, what doesn't, learn more about technology, learn more about software development, learn more about how teams work together, learn more about what's important to customers, all that kind of stuff. And so we value that just as much as, actually delivering the product.
So it sounds like you guys have kind of developed a philosophy, and so correct me if I'm wrong, but it does sound like you made some tweaks to how you do these projects, and you kind of bumped into the 37 Signals Basecamp methodology, and you're like, yeah, I think that's what we were shooting for. And then, or was it that you were working within a methodology that wasn't working at all, and then the heavens opened and you saw the Basecamp method? How did that come about?
Yeah, no, actually, it was more of an evolution than anything. Forming the team, we had a lot of experience working in waterfalls or hybrid waterfalls or Agile Scrum or hybrid Scrum Kanban. Like we were lucky enough in our careers to touch on all these different software development methodologies and project management methodologies. We would try to kind of build our own fun, awesome hybrid of those kind of things. We were doing some very similar ideas and concepts like the TikTok. And it's almost like, hey, work and cool down. And we were developing these kind of things and trying them out on projects, reevaluating how did that project feel? How do we feel about that? Is there tweaks we want to make, that kind of stuff? And then they came out with the book. And then we always followed what 37 Signals has done. Dave and I really like a lot of what they do.
Mm-hmm.
We don't agree 100%, but we like a lot of what they do and how they talk about things and how they want to go about developing software. So when they came out with the book, it was like, oh, actually, this is just kind of codifying a lot of the thoughts, giving us new thoughts, kind of an evolution of where we were just trying to go anyway. And so it wasn't kind of as much as an aha moment as just like an evolution of like, oh yeah, this totally fits. This actually is, they spent a lot more time, obviously writing a book, a lot more time thinking through the whole philosophy, the process, the flows, this kind of stuff, and then just putting it down. And what really is nice is it gives us a document that we just basically get to hand to every employee and say, okay, hey, this is how we build software.
Well, this is great, Travis. Thanks for taking some time to walk us through ShapeUp. If folks want to read more about this, we've actually covered a lot of this content here in a blog from July of 2021 called Always Be Shipping and On Time for Dinner, Why We Use ShapeUp. So, Travis, why don't you tell folks where they might be able to find other information, maybe from 37 on Signals or otherwise, where they can learn more about this?
Yeah, you can go to basecamp.com. /ShapeUp. That'll take you to online documentation, basically their online book. You can read it for free. They do offer buying a print edition if you like to carry something around. You can listen to the Rework podcast where they talk a lot about their philosophy and how they do things. And I think there's even, just search around Google and there's other companies that have been trying this and their interesting takes and in other industries, which I'm always fascinated with. I try to read that stuff as much as possible to help inform what we do, because again, we have our certain business context and how we do things. And it's always good to expand and learn and grow. And again, like I said, we're privileged to be a design focused company for developers and designers. And that allows us to do certain things. But I'd love to learn how other companies and other project managers and that kind of thing implement the ShapeUp ideas for their contexts.
Well, a big thank you to Travis for coming on the show and discussing how ShapeUp has helped us here at Font Awesome. And if you're wondering, no, we don't get any kickbacks or we don't have any partnerships with Basecamp or 37 Signals. We just think they have great ideas that we wanted to pass on to you. You can find all the information you're looking for there in the show notes. And this here podcast was produced by yours truly, Matt Johnson. The Font Awesome theme song was composed by Ronnie Martin, and audio mastering was done by Chris Enns at Lemon Productions.